Hi, welcome to God with George Ortega and technically Joshua Bond, but he's basically taking a break. We're basically having philosophical differences. I believe it's important to maintain the God concept, the word God. He doesn't believe that, and we have some other philosophical differences that 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 are kind of like impeding the vision I have for the show. So Josh and I are going to work on hopefully on his goals. He wants to start a new religion, and but it may be that God has, I mean, we did 48 episodes, which is pretty major, which is interesting because I mean that tells you something about Josh. I mean, like, he all along, I don't think he really he questioned the value of the God concept, but he was open-minded enough to work with me, on this, on a show about God, which is actually interesting though, like, because I mean, like, you would think if, well, whatever. Yeah, I should actually talk to him about that. Anyway, so like, so I'm looking forward to doing the shows on my own because, this is kind of like, it's not like that I couldn't theoretically do it with someone. Josh just wasn't the right person for this. But to find the right person, I actually might be exceedingly difficult because this show requires a constant focus on God. And right now, I'm kind of like veering from that just to explain all this. I could actually do this within God's context, and actually I probably will. So it is difficult. And so, like, I'm going to do it on my own because, like, it doesn't need a co-host. It really doesn't. I mean, it adds a dynamic to it. But, I just finished like a 61 episode series, Cell Ag for Pandemic Free Future, and a 60 episode series, Weekday Coronavirus Driven Mind stuff. So I really like doing these solo shows. So, all right. Anyway, so let's let's do an episode. Did I say it was 8:42 p.m. Eastern time? I may not have. I don't know. I mean, well, actually, it's 8:42 now. I don't know when it was, what time it was when we started. I guess about 7 minutes ago. So no, 3 minutes ago. Sorry. So let's see. Yeah. All right. So yeah, the other thing he wanted to outline, these shows where I prefer, and again, like he's got different goals in terms of what he wants to do with his presentation and stuff like that. I'm always about presenting the material and actually, including the audience in the process of developing the material. Actually, that's how, and we get connected with this with God, actually, because, well, yeah, it's time to start talking about God. So, like, basically, God had me create, as a reaction in March, I believe, um, as a reaction to the coronavirus, the distancing, all this stuff. I thought it'd be useful for an audience and useful for myself to create a video journal that I did 5 times a week. And then I presented it on White Plains Community Access Cable, Channel 76, and 5 days a week. So anyway, that was great. And it was like, it's like that led to God then, apparently had me do that so that I would transition to the far more important, my God, this Cell Ag for a Pandemic Free Future series, 61 episodes. I just basically lay out the very solid argument that, we either like transition to cellular agriculture, to appease God's wrath and to address some scientific concerns like future pandemic risks, or wait for the next one, or because it's if we don't do this, it's pretty inevitable. So and so like that series, so God had me do that series, and like it's now playing on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, their cable station, Channel One. Their Channel One. It's on. Actually, it's on tomorrow night. It's Monday at 12 a.m., which is like Sunday night midnight. So like but like yeah, it's playing for 13 weeks, the first first run, and then I've got 61 episodes I've already done. So like after these 13, I'll renew the show, and so anyway, so God had me do that, and I think it's a very powerful series. The messages it presents are very, very important to the world. They just are. But what God then had me realize is like, this idea about transitioning to cellular agriculture to prevent future pandemics. It's a very good idea, but it requires that other people understand it and appreciate it. Requires some virtue to, when they understand and appreciate it, to understand that it's the right thing to do and to further it. And so, with that and with other projects that I've had, that I've conducted over the last 40 years, it finally dawned on me that, wait a minute, this trying to get people to do stuff isn't working nearly as well as I would like. So God apparently had me create a new series where it would be, and this is, Laura, what I'm going to be doing perhaps a lot more of. I'm thinking of actually talking with God, and you're kind of like just watching the conversation. That may be a good way to do this show. But so yeah, God had me do this as a way of getting closer to God, because like if I'm gonna like shift from presenting ideas to people, and it's not like I'm going to stop doing that, I'll continue doing that, but like if I'm going to perhaps primarily address God and say, God, listen, this is what's going on, this is what needs to happen, or what I think needs to happen. It's always interesting, like when I pray to God, when I ask God for anything, there's always a caveat, basically like, and I think anybody who prays, this is like, it may not be stated by people, but it makes a lot of sense. It's just that like, I ask for things, and of course I say, well, if it's the best or right thing to do, if because sometimes we could ask for things that are just not in our interest, so that wouldn't be right. All right, so anyway, so God now has me doing this show and getting really much more in touch with God, much more in touch with thinking about God, and naturally, I've got to start asking God for things, and for me, I tend to simplify my requests: global poverty, abortion, animal abuse, climate change. We need solutions in those 4 areas, and that pretty much covers all of the current, well, a lot of the current and future, suffering that we're enduring. Naturally, I should be praying to God. Like, for example, I did a happiness show, in 2003 to 2006. I premiered the world's first ever happiness, television series completely about happiness. I basically went through the social science research published in peer-reviewed journals about what the researchers had discovered, and I just basically made that knowledge accessible to the public. And and that was great. And like just many, many ways to become happier. But I'm thinking, well, yes, I should ask God to whether, I have I have some ideas, some business ideas about making a lot of money while making people a lot happier, or you know by making people a lot happier. It's like scaling up happiness coaching. Happiness coaching is generally one individual, or there might be a small company, whatever. But this would be scaling that a lot. So anyway, I should probably ask God about to do that. Um, but then there's another component. I run meetups in Manhattan, and so it's the meetup has been going on for about 10 years, I guess. It's got about 1,500 members, something like that. And I mean, but I stopped doing the meetups for some reason. I would first I went to Zoom, and then I just haven't been doing meetings recently. I don't know why, but the reason I'm mentioning that is because the title of that meetup is I think New York City, because I base it in New York City, because that's I get many more people there. I go into Manhattan, conduct the meetings there. So I called it the New York City NYC Happiness and Goodness Club. Actually, I started in White Plains, and I don't think so. Anyway, so because I think I think I may have actually began it in New York, in Manhattan. So all right. Anyway, so again, Happiness and Goodness Club. It wasn't just about happiness, and to be honest, and this is where free will comes in. I don't blame myself, because I didn't have the free will to do this, but I should have focused on goodness much more. I think I focused way too much on happiness. So, but the point is that it's not just about happiness. There's a lot of people who are happy, feeling happiness, just doing some really immoral things that essentially making other people less happy or unhappy. Because that's what morality is about. So what I should ask God, and I guess this is going to be great. I think, I don't think Josh and I are going to be doing more episodes, because we really are, too far apart on this. Again, I'll help him start his religion, but unless he just, is able to change his complete, understanding and acceptance of this, and just basically, focus on God rather than just other stuff. But so, and again, I don't think it's right for him to do the show anymore. We'll see. Let's see what we're in negotiations now. But this is going to be this is the difference between this show actually. All right, back to the idea of praying to God, not just for happiness, but for goodness, and tying it in with the other ideas, you can teach happiness, you can also teach goodness, you can teach virtue, which is what needs to be done. So yes, I guess I'm looking forward to doing the show on my own. It's I'm able to present the material I want to present, and it's more of a challenge to me. It's again, I'm transitioning right now. I'm going to give myself this episode to just go into this solo mode. You know, I did 2 solo episodes about a week and a half ago, whatever. But you know, if I'm going to do 5 of these a week, then it will take a bit of transitioning, and so again, like, and the focus is like, you know, and it's actually easier to talk about God if, you know, if that's what, you know, we're doing with someone else, or potentially theoretically easier, I think. Um, you know, again, if the person is able to, if the other person is able to focus on God, you know, a lot. But you know, like spine, this is a little more difficult than that, but it's exceedingly productive, I think. I mean, I've just begun this. I mean, like, no, I haven't just begun this. I mean, like, you know, I've been talking to God for decades. You know, I mean, people pray. A lot of people pray what's written down for them. They pray, you know, not so much just talking to God. Very few people actually talk to God. People pray, have their, you know, memorized prayers from prayer books. But you know, a good example of somebody who did, if you've ever seen the movie Fiddler on the Roof, the character Tubye, I forget what his real life name is. It's just one name, you know, back, it's probably one of the first people who just like, he just did away with his last name. But anyway, so like, he's really good. He's like, you know, he's like talking with God, arguing with God, you know, asking God all the time. You know, he walks around with his like cart and his mule or whatever, and he's talking to God, which is what, you know, that is like my inspiration. That's, you know, that's the reason, you know, that's the reason for the show, really. You know, I tell people that, you know, I'm doing this, you know, of course, for an audience. You know, it's on public TV. I upload it to the internet, but it's very much so for myself. You know, this format kind of like gives me the structure, you know, to do this. You know, 5 episodes, 5 28-minute episodes a week. I have decided to do. That's not too much. I could do more if I wanted to, but I think 5 a week is enough. Um, and it just like, again, so like I was thinking of doing more episodes tonight. It's 8:57. But no, I think I want to go out. I think I want to just take a walk or something. You know, it's a nice day out. Been in, well, I was out before, but you know, I feel like taking a walk. Yeah. So, all right, I realize I didn't talk about God that much this time. I still have like, you know, more than 9 minutes to to really close this on God. But that's, you know, that's the goal, to you know, you watch this show, you know, it causes you to think about God more. It causes you to ponder, you know, what you know, this idea of communicating with God more, of getting closer to God. I mean, like, you know, here in the United States, 80-90% of us believe in God or higher power. So chances are, you know, you're watching this, you believe in God. And it may be kind of universal that perhaps we in general don't talk with God that much because we're blaming God for for so much that happens in the world that really shouldn't, you know, and that might, you know, maybe a lot of people who are religious are angry with God. Um, but you know, again, the idea is, I mean, that I don't think that many people talk with God like Tavia and Fiddler in the Roof, and like a lot of us, I mean, it's not like, a lot of people do talk to God actually, but that's probably to maybe like 5-10% of the population. That I gotta Google. I gotta ask the Google, our Oracle. Um, so yeah, this is good for the audience, um, to think about God more, to figure out, to absolve God. Like, yes, we're angry, and I talk about absolving God. In other words, like, there's several ways to absolve God. Well, no, two that I know about actually. One is that that if you're going to blame God for any evil, it doesn't matter what it is, any suffering, any pain he afflicts us with, um, logically, in a sense, you have to move back in time to when God made that decision. It's a, in other words, like God 14 trillion years ago, 14 billion years or whatever, um, knew everything that's happening today. God is omnipotent, God omniscient, God knows everything. So, so if God, for example, knew of all the pain and suffering that's happening today, 14 trillion years ago. I said trillion because it's like our universe is 13.8 billion years old. Okay, so I was gonna like use the 14, but trillion, like I could say like quadrillion. I mean, like God has like been around forever, right? Which is so cool. But that's the point. So like if we understand that that God is eternal, we never reached that point in time. Time is a logical construct that doesn't really, I don't think, depend on this universe, even though, it works within this universe. So like, what I'm saying is like, yes, I think conceptually time existed before this universe existed, even though there's no scientific evidence because, we can't access anything before the Big Bang, whatever. But again, because God is eternal, we never again reached that moment in time where God said, well, I'm going to, in 14 trillion years, and how many, like, it's like a Google is like 1 in 100 zeros, something like that, which is like so much more than trillions. And God is like, that's like one moment in God's existence. So anyway, so like, all right, I've got like less than 5 minutes. So basically, yes, to absolve God, you can basically say, well, you'll have to have reached that point in time where God decided to have these bad things happen, to blame God. And since God is eternal, you can never reach that that time, that point. All right, the second one, and that does work, but of course, like with that one, you can't credit God for any of the good in the world either, which I'm fine with. I mean, I don't credit we human beings with any good that we do fundamentally, but I still love people. I love myself. So I would love God, um, not having, not being, I mean, I logically credit God. I don't logically credit us. All right, whatever. So the second way to absolve God would be to kind of, and it's not a complete absolution, as I see it. Parents who love their children routinely punish their children to teach them right and wrong for their benefit. So, so you apply this to God, we, and yes, some really, really horrible, painful, punishments happen. And, but, the idea again is like, as human parents, we punish our children out of love. And I think we want to see God's punishment as that. And the other thing is like, like, for example, let's say, I mean, like sometimes we consider that ultimate punishment death, right? But think about it, like in Judeo-Christian Islamic theology, this death isn't really so very consequential because there's like, presumably an eternity that comes for us after that. We don't cease to exist. So sometimes what we think is like a punishment might actually be a blessing. We we God, takes us from this life and then brings us to a higher, more pleasant, blissful existence. So, and that's another thing about punishment. Well, we're thinking something that God is doing is evil, where in some cases, you know, perhaps in every case, I don't know, it's for the best, or it's for a much better outcome. All right, so those are the two ways that I have for absolving God. And I think the first one is more logically strong. And the second one is a good framework. It's not a complete answer, but we can relate to it. We understand that we, not just as parents, we as people, we'll punish each other. Somebody like does a wrong, we'll punish ourselves, and it's out of love. All right, so I've got less than 2 minutes left. Yeah, I'm not gonna like do another episode today. It's Saturday night. That's why I get out and whatever. I'm actually like, I started jamming to Yes with my bass guitar, and I've rediscovered Yes. Yes was like, my two top groups when I was in high school were Pink Floyd and Yes. And I think Yes may be a bit, Pink Floyd just, I think, pioneered this stuff, but Yes, I think took it to a bit more of a positive level in some ways. So anyway, I'm making this playlist. I was just jamming a lot today. I'll probably get back. I'll take a walk and maybe jam some more. All right. So I hope you had a great, Christmas, holiday season. I hope, your New Year's is going to be great. I mean, I'll see you, this is, I guess, airing next Thursday, actually. So this is like New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's Eve. All right. All right. So I guess, yeah, I got 30 seconds. I want to start doing a plug for the station. Watch this every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. on White Plains Community Media Channel 76 if you get Verizon, 45 if you get Optimum. No, 76 if you get Optimum, 45 you get Verizon. And if you get Verizon and you live in some surrounding areas, you can catch it that way. Also, thanks for watching. I will see you again next time.